Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about how to factor a quadratic equation. So first, you want to find out what your A, B, and C all equal. The way that it's structured, A will be your first coefficient, B will be your second, and C will be your third, as long as all of the terms are there. But let's say there's a term missing. Like let's say we don't have this plus 3x in the middle. Well, if we don't have an x term, then we don't have a b. B would be equal to 0 then. But we would still have an a equal to 1 and a c equal to negative 28. Let's say that we just have x squared plus 3x and we don't have this minus 28. Well, then we have the x squared term, meaning we have the a equal 1. And we have our x term, meaning we have a b equal to something. Here it's 3. But we do not have the last term. We don't have a c term because we don't have a number without an x at all. So your a is right before your x squared, your b is right before your x, and your c is without any kind of x or variable. All right, so once you know what A, B, and C are, now you can do something called the big X. You make a big old X on your paper, and at the top, you're going to write down what A times C equals. A will usually be 1. We'll talk about times when it's not 1, because that does make things harder. And then you multiply that times C. So this is just going to be negative 28. 1 times negative 28. It's negative 28. And then down here, you're going to have your B term, which is 3. Your B coefficient, rather. And so the goal is to find two numbers, we'll put them on the sides here, that multiply to that top number, negative 28, and they have to add to that bottom number, 3. So let's look at factors of 28. By the way, factors are numbers that multiply into a product. So it's just two numbers that are multiplying. And you can remember that by thinking about the x factor, right? Because we multiply with this little x symbol. So factor x factor, factor times factor equals product. And you'll notice that when we go into factored form, we're going to have two things being multiplied. They're going to be called binomials, and we'll talk about that word in a little bit. So let's factor 28. So we're going to find numbers that multiply 28, like 1 times 28. Now, they also have to add up to 3, but here's the weird thing you want to watch out for. Negative 28 is, of course, a negative number. So you want to make sure that one of your numbers is positive and the other number is negative. If you had both negatives, they would multiply to a positive. And if you had both positives, they would obviously multiply to a positive. So they have to be two, different signs. And when you add a positive and a negative, you might know that it's a lot more like subtracting. So we're looking for numbers that subtract to 3. And 28 and 1 are not those numbers.
Negative 4 and 7.
Yeah, you're right. That was amazing. So you have, I was going to go through 2 and 14, obviously not. And then we try 4 and 7, and we see that those do subtract to 3. And you have to choose which one's going to be negative, and
4.
The 4 is right. You want to make the 4 negative. Because if the 4 was positive and the 7 was negative, they would add up to negative 3 instead of positive 3. So good job. All right. Now it's just as simple as writing parentheses x plus 7, because we have a plus 7 there, positive. And then another parentheses, x minus 4. And since these parentheses are next to each other, we're setting them up to be multiplied. That's why we call them factors. They're multiplying to some product. And there you go. That's how you factor a quadratic equation. Thank you for watching. How do I stop this? Okay.